that's, of course, I watch the fight a lot, actually, and making sure that those same mistakes don't happen again.
Wow, so you've watched him more than once?
Yeah, of course.
Wow.
Maybe like twice a week.
Really?
It took me around 3 weeks after the fight before I actually watched it again. And then since then, I watch it quite often to make sure that, it's part of my training. It's watching my fights and knowing what I did wrong and seeing the mistakes.
It was a decent offer, but like I said, like you just like put the two next to each other, and like a big crossover fight versus Anthony Joshua, with also like a serious paycheck as well, or a crossover to the UFC, which is different. Like it's in Derek Lewis is he's an amazing fighter. He's a good name within the UFC, but doesn't get that like that stature that I'm looking for. I'm like, I don't know. It was a good coming in fight for transitioning to the UFC, but I was like, nah, let's go for the Anthony Joshua fight. So that's what happened.
Yeah, they reached out a few times, so they were trying to set up a matchup with Sean O'Malley next month. So have his team reach out. We're ready to go. We come out unscathed on the fight this Saturday, and we go to Philadelphia and strap on the singlets and go to work.
So you presumably, if he takes it, would be on the same card as Merab, Cejudo. So 4 like bantamweight champions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Raf's doing an amazing job. The ambience of their shows, the talent that they're bringing in to really catapult wrestling in a great way. Their shows are awesome. If you haven't tuned in or watched, I think you guys all saw Armin last weekend. Went viral. So it's great, and it's for us to stay healthy. Not stay healthy, but for us to stay in activity. A lot of times we can have months, years, in between fights. So for us to go out there and still compete and still in martial arts as wrestling, to go out there and make some money. They're paying the wrestlers really good as well, and they're holding great shows. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
Isn't a part of you just going to be frustrated that you can't actually just fight Sean O'Malley?
Oh yeah, I tried to get that fight for a while, and now that's I'm hoping that he'll wrestle me, because he negated the fight for quite some time. We try to get that matched up. So yeah, wrestling will be fun. You
could do an Armin and just hit him afterwards.
Yeah, you can always do that, right?
I always make this public that I want to fight him, and it's about the UFC. If UFC want to make this fight one day, but he's a champion right now. I think after a good victory against Azamat on April 11, I can back at middleweight to be in line to fight him. Or I can wait for him at 205. So I can fight him on both divisions.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're champion. Let's go. 9, 10, go. 11, 12, go. 13, go. 14, go. 15, 10 more, go. 16.
No way.
First thing I thought was, this is not a good look for Armin, man. The entire reason that Dana was using, right or wrong, was that Armin has caused these problems, right? Pulled out of a fight last minute, headbutting Dan Hooker, all these different reasons. Like, why would you give him another reason? It just doesn't make any sense. And Armin is clearly a hothead who needs to calm down and take a step back and focus on what he needs to focus on. But I mean, first off, like, what a great performance by Armin. I mean, it was a really, really good match. And Giorgio, yeah, you said he wrestled Cleveland State. Maybe he didn't do a ton of things in college, whatever, but he's a hella good wrestler. I mean, we've seen him on his channel, against some really good guys, man. Like, he's a hella good wrestler for sure. I don't know if he's like what level we would consider him at, but he's a hella good wrestler. Armin looked great against him in a pure wrestling match, which, as far as I know, like, Armin doesn't have a bunch of pure wrestling experience. So to be able to compete with a guy just with that amount of experience in wrestling is impressive. So, you got to give credit where credit's due. But one of the things that he probably doesn't realize from not having wrestling experience is that those slaps and stuff are like commonplace. Like, when you're in intense freestyle, particularly in freestyle, but even in college, when you're in these intense matches, like, guys they're hitting that threshold of a slap versus just a snapping a head, or slapping or snapping, or just pulling on the head. Different like, they're trying to get as close as they can because they're scrapping out there, right? But the way that Armin handled it, and the way that he waited till the bell rang, and waited till Giorgio was on his back and kind of defenseless, and man, that was a bad look, and I don't like it one bit from Armin. I don't know what my voice means, but man, I've stuck up for him so much, like, on this podcast every week. I'm like, dude, it's bullshit that he doesn't have a title shot. And now you're kind of like, yeah, he should probably still get a title shot, but it's like, if you don't, I get it.
Told you what I think. I think Max Holloway gets the win. Can he get a finish? 100%. I think he can. And you know what? I'm gonna go with a finish for Max. I'm gonna go with a finish. I think it's a chaos early. You might see Charles have moments, but I think you start to see that change quite a bit. I think you start to see Max being very effective. I think Charles might, a lot of people want to say, oh, he quits. They used to say that this was the case. And then people were saying, no, he's not that guy anymore. And I'm not saying he was ever that guy. I'm just saying that, some people, his style is 100%. You can't do that forever. With Max Holloway, you go 100%. Now he is gonna get you tired. And he's one guy that knows how to capitalize on someone being tired. If he sees you tired, he's gonna make you pay more and more and more, and he can definitely mentally and physically break you down.
Before I say this, Habib, Islam, I see you guys. Fans, I see you. But some of us were making the case that when you look at it, Charles Oliveira might have the most impressive resume in lightweight history. The number of wins, the strength of schedule, the people that you beat. Where do you think your run ranks all-time lightweight?
Eu acho que cada tem, each and every one of us and them has their moments and their errors. You talk about Habib, who just basically played that when he stepped away from the game undefeated. Islam is making history, 2-division champion. But when you look at the resume, the names, the wins, the records, and what I've been through, I believe that my resume is the best.
It's just, you're Dana White. You came to this game, when no one believed in this shit, and you made it into a $7.1 billion company. That's crazy. That's inspiring. That's like, you've proved it to them. So now, again, Zuffa is the next challenge. Zuffa Boxing is the next challenge that he set his eyes on. But with that being said, don't forget he started in boxing, of course, but what brought you to
He started as a doorman.
A doorman, yeah. No, but in the fight sports, he started in boxing, yeah. But this is what got him to be the name Dana White, the UFC president, is this. So I can see why the other fighters. I'm trying to think. How do I feel? Wait, I'm like, do I feel jaded by it?
You have money to do.
Yeah, no. But no. Hey, look. But I understand. Like these, like we know These guys are top class boxers. They're the best in the world at what they do, but so are we. This is the UFC. And if one guy can command that kind of money for one fight, and that's from the same company, Zuffa, and this is what's been keeping the lights on, is the UFC. You know, this is what we love. We love ultimate fighting, not limited fighting. So I don't feel jaded, but I'm like, I want 15 million for one fight too.
Former UFC light heavyweight champion Yuri Prochazka will be facing the number 3 ranked Carlos Ulberg for the vacant, undisputed UFC light heavyweight championship.
In Miami.
Yeah, Miami. Tatiana Suarez versus Lupe Godinez. Vincent Luque will be taking on Kevin Gastelum.
I still love you.